Amar'e Stoudemire, page 40. Middle, page 40. The Phoenix Suns, who took the league by surprise that season, secured the top seed in the Western Conference thanks to their 62-20 win-loss record. People would attribute the drastic improvement to Steve Nash, who ran D'Antonio's offense to perfection. But nobody could discount how much Stoudemire meant to the team, particularly since he was the best recipient of the MVP point guard's passes because of how well he finished off the pick and roll and how much he ran the floor during open court opportunities. Considering that the Phoenix Suns were the top team in the West, they were the favorites to go as far as the NBA Finals. Their road to a championship run would start in the first round against the Memphis Grizzlies, who never stood a chance in the franchise's first playoff appearance. The Phoenix Suns would quickly sweep the Grizzlies out of the first round using the potent offensive attack. Despite the quick ending to his first playoff series victory, Amar'e Stoudemire did have his share of great performances. In that round, in Game 2, he would go for a double-double performance by logging in 34 points and 10 rebounds. In Game 3, he would go for 30 points on 11 out of 19 shooting before scoring only 18 in the closeout game. He did, however, block 5 shots in that match. In Game 1 of the Phoenix Suns' second-round matchup, Amar'e Stoudemire would outrun and dominate any other big man put on by the Dallas Mavericks. Stat would shoot 13 out of 12 from the floor in the game to record 40 points on top of the 16 rebounds he collected. There was seemingly no way of stopping Stoudemire in that win for the Suns. Amar'e Stoudemire was just as unstoppable in Game 2 when the Mavs put up a better fight. Stat would finish the game with 30 points and 16 rebounds for a consecutive double-double performance. Unfortunately, Dallas would take that win in a closely fought contest that went the way of the Mavericks. The season was all tied up 1-1 at that point. Stoudemire was once again his dominant self when the series moved over to Dallas, Texas for Game 3 and 4. Amar'e was all over the place, whether it was in scoring, rebounding, or defending. Stoudemire finished the game with 37 points on 54% shooting from the field, together with 14 rebounds and 5 block shots. He was primarily responsible for giving the Suns the series lead. But after 3 consecutive explosive games for Amar'e Stoudemire, the athletic big man would finally slow down in Game 4 when he was saddled with foul trouble. He would defer to his point guard, Steve Nash, who had 48 points in that game. Amar'e would have only 14 points on a weak 3 out of 8 shooting clip from the floor in that loss. Back in Phoenix for Game 5, Amar'e Stoudemire returned to full form after seeing familiar faces and friendly crowds. In another one of his efficient outings, the big man would shoot 10 out of 17 from the field and 13 out of 15 from the foul line to collect a total of 33 points, together with the 18 huge rebounds and 3 blocks he had in that win for the Suns. And though he struggled to stay on the floor because of foul trouble in Game 6, Amar'e did just enough damage to make sure his team came out with the win. With that win, the Phoenix Suns were well on their way to the conference finals after a 6-game series victory over the Dallas Mavericks. In the Western Conference Finals, the Phoenix Suns would match up against another Texas powerhouse team. This time, it was the San Antonio Spurs. It was during this series when a rivalry between the Suns and Spurs blossomed because both teams were complete opposites of one another. The Suns thrived in a running offensive game that seemingly had no proper system or plays called in their offensive sets. They controlled the pace as much as possible while making sure they were putting up shots in a hurry. Meanwhile, the Spurs were methodic and systematic. They relied more on defense than on offense while playing a slow-paced ball game. Considering the Spurs' front line were best suited for a slow-paced game, it was the perfect target for the quick and explosive Amar'e Stoudemire to feast on all series long. In Game 1, none of San Antonio's big men were quick or strong enough to keep Stat at bay. The Suns' star would make 13 of his 21 shots and 15 of his 18 free throw attempts to go for a total of 41 points, together with 9 rebounds. In Game 2, he was just as dominant after going for 37 points and 8 rebounds. Stoudemire made 14 of his 23 shots from the floor and 9 out of his 10 attempts from the charity stripe in that game. Game 3 was not different as far as Stoudemire's production was concerned. The All-Star center would finish with 34 points and 11 rebounds for his first double-double of the series. When everyone thought that Amar'e Stoudemire was going to slow down concerning dominance, he did not. In Game 4, Stat made 13 of his 23 field goals to go for 31 points in the fourth consecutive game he had, scoring at least 30. Then in Game 5, he had his best output of the series after going for 42 points, which were scored on a 50% clip, 16 rebounds, and 4 blocks. All in all, Amar'e Stoudemire was an unstoppable wrecking ball in that series. He averaged 37 big points in those 5 games, and nobody could ever question his dominance. But despite Stoudemire's explosive scoring outputs in that series against the Spurs, the Phoenix Suns found little to no success in finding bright spots other than him and Nash. The Suns' role players and bench guys were absent all series long, while the Spurs had no problems with keeping up with their fast-paced offense. San Antonio ended up taking games 1 to 3 away from the Suns to put Phoenix in an insurmountable 0-3 hole. Though they ended up winning Game 4, the series was done in 5 games as the San Antonio Spurs would eventually win the NBA title in the finals. Despite the sorry loss to San Antonio Spurs in the conference finals, Amar'e Stoudemire showed the world that he was truly capable of an explosive superstar in a fast-paced team built around his athletic capabilities. A rookie who was overlooked 3 years ago and now developed himself into one of the most difficult centers to guard in the league. It was at that point when Stoudemire and the Phoenix Suns had established themselves as a league powerhouse that would dominate and contend for several more years to come.